Welcome back on Global Lens. After days of unrest and vandalism, Nepal has got an interim government led by Prime Minister Sushila Karki. The appointment of Karki was made in a Gen Z way via consensus reached on Discord, a platform usually used by gamers, but this time used to select their Prime Minister. Now let's take a look at Karki, her accomplishments, and why Gen Z selected her. First and foremost, in 2016, she became the first woman Chief Justice of Nepal, and she was known for having zero tolerance towards corruption. Her approach to corruption even landed her in trouble with the political establishment in 2017. Those credentials likely played a pivotal role in her appointment. One of the first decisions she took after taking office was to designate those who died during the protests as martyrs and offer payments of 1 million Nepalese rupees to the families of the deceased. Further, she went on record saying neither she nor her team will hold the post for more than 6 months and that within the period, Nepal will hold fresh elections. She also stated that the vandalism during the protests will be investigated and action will be taken. Meanwhile, 3 ministers have already been sworn in and joined Karki's cabinet. Rameshwar Prasad Kanal has been appointed as finance minister. Kulmun Gising, who has been one of the front runners for the post of prime minister, has taken over as Minister of Energy and Water Resources and Irrigation, also holding the transport portfolio. Om Prakash Aryal has been named as Home Minister. Meanwhile, Karki holds over 14 portfolios, including agriculture, defense, foreign affairs, education, among others. What next for Nepal and the present-day interim government? We discussed that with former Ambassador to Nepal, Rakesh Sood. Ambassador Sood, thank you very much for joining us. In Prime Minister Sushila Karki, does Nepal get a leader who can stabilize and inspire the country?
Well, we have to wait and see because what is happening in Nepal is outside the constitution. Because the constitution of Nepal does not permit this kind of a dissolution of parliament. And this is something that has already been protested by, I think, 8 of the political parties, including the 3 principal political parties, the Nepali Congress, the UML, and the Maoists, and a host of others that have representation in parliament. So I'm sure they're going to go to the Supreme Court asking for a judgment on how this has been done. Now, at the same time, a constitution cannot provide for every single eventuality, so there will be the doctrine of political necessity and things like that that will be invoked. And this protest was also unusual. It created a situation because the protest was against the government, but it ended up delegitimizing all major political parties and their existing leadership. So in that sense, the people who are being who have been appointed by Gen Z in this somewhat, as you said, unorthodox fashion of using Discord, which is normally a gamer's platform, is something which is, I guess, no other country has done this kind of thing before. So Nepal is venturing into uncharted political territory.
Right. What's going to be the immediate challenge, apart from a legal challenge to the interim government? What do you think is the first major economic challenge that Sushila Karki will have to face? And do you also believe that the action would also include action against those who were corrupt, and she would have to show some amount of accountability there as well?
Well, Prime Minister Sushila Karki said that her priority is going to be 2 things after she was sworn in. I forget now whether it was 2 days or, but when she was sworn in, she announced that she would attach top priority to first and foremost going after corruption in high places, which means not the petty corruption kind of thing, but corruption by ministers, prime ministers, and so on. And there's plenty of that. And she has a record, as you recalled. The second thing she said that she would focus on is to find those responsible for the excessive use of force on 8th of September against the Gen Z demonstrators who the police used excessive force, and many of them were killed. Now the numbers are going up. I mean, there are more than 30 as of now. On that day, there were 21. So these are the two things. But I would like to believe that as a former Chief Justice and somebody who obviously believes in the Constitution, she would also have a priority, or she should have a priority, of restoring faith in the constitutional processes, because after all, the election is part of a constitutional process. The elections are going to be on the basis of political parties, which brings into play questions as to will the other political parties that, even though they have filed legal cases or will file legal cases protesting against the dissolution or questioning its legitimacy, will they take part in the election? Will
That's an
they
important point.
participate in the election? And if they don't, or if they are prevented from it, then how is it a free and fair election? How is it constitutional? And I think so, therefore, restoring faith in constitutional processes, me, is critical.
Right. The next question is, how important is the developing situation in Nepal for India right now? A critical neighbor. At the same time, we saw how Prime Minister Modi was quick to congratulate and give best wishes to Sushila Karki as soon as she was sworn in as the interim head. What does India need to focus on here onwards?
Well, Parikshit, I think we have to have a relook at what was declared as the Neighborhood First policy in 2014. I think we are finding our neighborhood in disarray. We saw this in 2021 when in Myanmar, when Aung San Suu Kyi's government was dismissed. And we saw it again in 2021 when the Taliban came in Afghanistan. In 2022, we saw it in Sri Lanka. In 2023, we saw the protests in Pakistan, though the army then stepped in to quash those protests and restore a degree of stability. 2024, we saw Bangladesh. Now we've seen Nepal. So clearly, we need to have a relook at our neighborhood first policy, because obviously, as a major power in South Asia, we don't like external interference. But if we see political fragmentation or political instability in the region, then it is almost an invitation for external powers to come in and make things difficult for us. And I think we need to have, therefore, a very careful relook. And Nepal is extremely important from this point of view, because Nepal is one neighboring country with which we have an open border.
Right.
Which, of course, currently it is sealed.
Ambassador Sood,
It is sealed.
right.
But,
It is currently,
normally
it's an
it is
open border. And we have very close relations. But could you also give us a sense of the companies? We have banking institutions which have a presence in Nepal. How closely linked are India and Nepal together? And how do we see the developments that will take place politically? Who are some of the new leaders who could emerge out of this crisis in the next 6 months?
Well, Parikshit, our economic ties with Nepal are very, very close. So much so that, let me tell you, when Nepalese government or their or international organizations talk about Nepalese diaspora, they don't count the Nepalese who work in India as part of their diaspora. And that would give you an idea of how people work, because of the constant toing and froing that goes on across the border between India and Nepal. There are people who live in Nepal and come to work every day in India, and vice versa. And there are people who live in Nepal, but the shops in India are the ones that are dependent on customers from Nepal. So, but that apart, there is a huge amount of investment in Nepal, has been there for a long time, although in recent years, China has emerged also as a major investor in infrastructure in Nepal. But the people-to-people connect between India and Nepal is something which is very strong. However, I must caution that with Gen Z, it is not just the people-to-people connect between India and Nepal. It is a Nepali generation connecting globally. There is a slight difference. So I think we should be cautious and not overemphasize it because it can easily backfire. So that's
Right.
extremely important. The
All right.
second thing you said was about the new leaders. I think one thing is clear that all the old leaders are now tainted. They're soiled goods. I think their political future is over. Ironically, all the three major political parties, the Nepali Congress, the UML, and the Maoists, were actually facing general conventions within the next 6 months. And in all three cases, the existing leadership, namely former Prime Minister Oli, the president of the Maoists, the general secretary of the Maoists, Prachanda, Pushpakumal Dahal Prachanda, and the
All right.
Nepali Congress president, Sher Bahadur Dioba, were facing challenges in their forthcoming respective general conventions. Now, it is not just the new leaders who will come out of Gen Z and how they organize themselves politically for the elections, but also the existing political parties and who are the new leaders who are going to surface in the existing political parties.
Right. That'll all be important to watch out for. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sood, for being with us on the program. With that, it's a wrap on another edition of Global Lens. Goodbye, and many thanks for watching.